Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video all about my Freestyle Libre. I want to take you through a few tips and tricks that I've learned. I've had it for about 7 months now, so I'm kind of in the swing of things with it. So for anyone who has a Libre and just wants to see how someone else copes with it, and if I've got any like tips and tricks that can help, maybe some things you might not have thought about when using your Libre, but also for anyone else who either hasn't considered a Libre and wants to be just a bit more informed about it, or someone who's looking to get one but is not sure how, this video is hopefully exactly what you need. One thing to say is that this video is primarily based for people that are living in England, just because obviously getting something on the NHS differs to getting something in any other country. I know recently Libres have become quite popular in England. I saw something on the JDRF website. Apparently 24% of people with type 1 diabetes in England are now prescribed a Libre on the NHS, which is fantastic. But I think they have been quite popular in the US for a while, and there are a couple other options which are similar to a Libre that are more readily available in the US, I think, just because of how the healthcare system works. So I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But yeah, so hopefully this video will get you a bit more informed about the Libre, and I will jump right in with an explanation of what it is. I did do a brief explanation of this in my first video, so if you're bored of hearing about that, then just skip a few seconds. But basically it's a flash glucose monitor. So before I had this, I would have to check my blood sugar with finger pricks. You basically prick your finger, use the monitor to analyse the blood, and it tells you what your blood sugar is. And you do this when you wake up, before every single meal that you have, or snacks that you have to do it before you go to bed. And then if you think something's not right, you also have to do it before you drive. If you're going on a long journey, they say 5 to drive, so if your blood sugar's below 5, you shouldn't really drive anywhere because you risk going a bit low. And there are loads of other times when you need to check your blood sugar, which I can't think of right now, but there are. So yeah, so with the Libre, I no longer have to prick my finger, I can just use my phone to scan. So with the Libre, in the pack you do get this separate scanner, and you just wave it over and it tells you the number. But if you have an iPhone, I think 8 or above, you can use your phone to scan it, which is really helpful, and it comes up on an app, which I will discuss more about later. One thing to mention is, if I keep looking down, it's because I made notes, because I want to make sure I get all of the information in, so please excuse if I have to check, because I want to make sure that all the points I want to tell you about I remember to say. So to get the Libre on the NHS, you have to go through quite a long process. Because they are so expensive, you can self-fund, so you can buy them directly from Abbott, who are the manufacturers, but they are expensive, like I just said. I think so it's £60 either for 1 or 2 sensors, I can't remember, but anyway, so you change your sensor every 2 weeks, so it's either 60 or £120 a month if you get them yourselves, which is something I couldn't really afford, so I had to wait to become eligible on the NHS. But to become eligible, you have to fulfill one of a few criteria. Either you're a type 1 diabetic who is pregnant, and in that case you will get a Libre for 12 months, so from the pregnancy and then post-pregnancy, just to help manage that transition, or prove that you need a high level of blood sugar monitoring, so you have to be able to prove that you are testing your blood sugar 8 times or more every single day. Or you're a type 1 diabetic who is unable to routinely check their blood sugar themselves due to a disability. Again, this has to be verified by a medical professional, or a medical professional has to verify that you work in conditions which are not safe to be doing a blood test regularly, in which case you can get the Libre. Or the final criteria is that you have a loss of hypo-awareness, or you are experiencing severe recurrent hypos. In this case, you may be able to get a CGM, which is slightly different from an FGM, which is what this is. So it's flash glucose monitoring or continuous glucose monitoring. So the CGM is more like a Dexcom, which many of you may have if you are over in the US or in a different country. and I will explain the difference between those shortly, but pretty much a Dexcom CGM is almost impossible to get funded in England unless you have reduced hypo-awareness or severe recurrent hypos. So after you have proven that you've qualified, you then need to agree to go on a flash glucose monitoring training course. This can either be done in person or you can do a course online. So what I did is I did it online. You just have to go through, I think it was like an hour worth of just like little information slides. After each section there's like a mini test and you just have to pass them all, and then you have to forward this certificate that you get at the end to your doctor to prove that you are educated on the Libre and you know what you're doing with it, so that you're not wasting the NHS's resources. You also have to promise that you will scan at least 8 times per day. The whole reason that most people will get this is because they've proven that they are blood testing more than 8 times a day, so obviously you need to be scanning more than 8 times a day. And you also need to agree to have either previously done or be seriously considering doing a, let me quote this, structured type 1 diabetes education programme, like a Daphne course, and then you are then in a 6-month probation period. So within this period you have to prove that the Libre has helped you improve your diabetes management, either through a lowered HbA1c, a higher percent of time in your target range, or reduced hypos are the main 3 criteria. If not, you may not be able to continue having the Libre funded on the NHS. You can then choose to self-fund if you think it's made a real big difference, or one option that I've seen quite a few people do, if they can't get it on the NHS, they buy the initial pack and then they will just use a Libre, say 2 weeks every few months, every 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever. So then you're not paying the 60 quid every 2 weeks, you're just paying it as and when you need it. So if you feel like you want to research some patterns, or you think your control is slipping a bit and you want to know why, you've then got the initial pack and you can just buy these directly from Abbott as and when you need, and then you don't have the ongoing costs if you can't get it on the NHS, or if the NHS prescription gets taken away from you, which would be absolutely gutting. So yeah, so I actually had quite an interesting dip into the Libre. So basically, I don't know how many hospitals this is applicable to, so I'm really sorry if no one else can actually do this, but the hospital that I'm at, where I have my diabetes care, they have a contract with Abbott. So Abbott, to be able to provide these on the NHS, they legally have to be providing proof that they are accurate. So basically, they do, throughout the year, they constantly do accuracy checks, for which they need type 1 diabetics to test the Libre for 2 weeks. So I signed up to one of these trials. They actually pay you 60 quid to do them, so definitely a good motivation if you can get on one of these trials through your hospital. So on the trial, you are obviously testing the accuracy of the Libres, so you'll be given 2, 1 on each arm, thick blood testing strips. So yeah, so you have 2 Libres on. Each time you scan one, you have to scan the other, and then you have to do 4 blood tests throughout the day on one of them. One of them will be assigned like blood testing monitor, and one will just be scanning monitor. And then, yeah, you just do that for 2 weeks. It gives Abbott the proof that they need to carry on selling them to the NHS, and it gives you a chance to test the Libre out for 2 weeks, see if it's something that you want, see if you think it's helpful, or if actually you're really not interested and you've just done it for 2 weeks, you don't have to go through the process of proving that you need one, you've just done the trial, and that's great. So it's definitely worth speaking to your diabetes team to see if that kind of thing is available for you. But again, I'm really sorry if it's literally just my hospital and I'm just really lucky and I just told you about something that you can't do. I'm sorry, please don't hate me. So yeah, so my next thing I want to talk to you about is, why would you want one? Like I said, I've had diabetes for 15 years and I have always been on the side of, I don't want anything permanently on me, attached to me, in me, stuck in me, nothing. I don't want it to be seen. I was just like, it's gonna hurt, what if it falls out, it's a bit gross. That was me for a long time. It was actually only when I started looking into people with diabetes on Instagram and seeing loads of people having them on Instagram and raving about them, I was like, wow, actually that sounds incredible, maybe I should give it some thought, which is why I wanted to make this video. So people who maybe feel the same way I did, maybe I can persuade you into the pros of a Libre. So like I said, you scan it and it tells you your blood sugar, but not only that, it gives you a graph of the way your blood sugar is going. So you have the graph, the number, and then an arrow either directly up, slightly up, horizontal, slightly down, all the way down, depending on whether you're rising fast, slowly, steady, falling fast, which is really great, because often before I had the Libre I would go to bed with a blood sugar of like between 6 to 8, and I'd wake up and I'd be like 16, and it's just gonna, I would have had carbs that were in my system still that I didn't have enough insulin for, but I didn't know that, because all you see when you do a finger prick is that solid like one number, whereas with this it will tell me now you're 6 but you're going up, and I would know that I either need to wait a bit, scan again in a bit, or have some more insulin and know that I'm going to go to bed and wake up more stable. Another great thing about it overnight is that you can see trends. So I also had a period recently where I was going low really often in the night, but I didn't know whether the problem was my basal insulin or my bolus insulin, but because of the Libre I could see actually it was going down really slowly. I'd be going low about 4 AM and it was kind of a gentle arrow, so I could see that actually I wasn't crashing suddenly, it was just that I had too much basal insulin on board. Whereas if, say, I could see that it had like been straight and suddenly crashed down, I could be like, well, obviously that's a bolus insulin, that was my fast acting, I know what to change. So then I knew that I need which insulin to change, and it saved me having to like go through all of that long process of like waking up in the night every night at like 2 different points to check my blood sugar, see how I'm doing. I literally just had to look at a graph, which was, honestly, it was really life changing. You can make quick decisions with your diabetes as opposed to with the finger prick. You have to do so many trials and errors to see if you can find a pattern, whereas this just shows you a pattern straight away. So with the scanner, you also can see the percent of time you're in target. So you set your own target. The lowest you can have your lower range target is 4.0, which is where I have mine, and then you set your upper range target, and the highest you can set it to is 10. I have mine at 9, but it just depends where you're at with your diabetes management and where you feel comfortable, and where you feel good having your blood sugar at. So my range is 4 to 9, and on here it says the percent of time in range, percent of time below range, and percent of time above range. And you also can see hypos, so it makes a graph of times of day and how many hypos you have in that time of day, so you know if you think you keep going low all the time, you can see what time of day this is happening, and then you can find some patterns and sort that out. So that's what you get with the scanner. But if you do have a CGM, a Libre, and you have an iPhone 8 or above, I would 100% recommend the app. I'll just show you a bit now. You get so much more information on here, which I didn't realise for a long time. I just used the scanner. But this is actually great. So on here, so for this thing, the scanner, you get given your time in range for the last, I think it's just like forever, so it just constantly updates. Whereas in the scanner, you can see your, up here, you get your average blood sugar for the day. So up here is just the information for the day. So the time you last scanned, your average for the day, and your time in target. Mine is embarrassingly low today because I was high last night. I don't really know why. Go look into that later. But anyway, you can go into the corner, and then, oh, you can also actually do this with the other thing, the scanner, is you see your daily pattern. So it creates a graph of your average blood sugars. This is for the last 7 days. Dark blue is 75% of your readings, and the light blue is the 75 to 95%. So I can see on mine that in the morning I have more variation, like the bar is thicker, so my blood sugars can go up and down a bit more in the morning, but I can also see that I tend to be a bit higher in the morning. I will probably have mentioned this already in a video, but I am currently working through my morning highs. They've changed since being in isolation. I think actually literally today I worked it out, which was great, but these graphs really do help. So I can also see that in the evening I tend to go above my target range just after dinner and then come down. And you can do that for the last 14 days. You can see I was so much worse 2 weeks ago because I was going through the transition period of isolation. Now I've kind of got it down, so the last 7 days is more accurate. after that you can see the time in target, and as opposed to the scanner that you get, this one tells you time in target, percent slightly low, percent really low, percent slightly high, percent really high. So really high they count as 13.3 and above. So at the moment I'm a bit less in target than I'd like to be, but again, like I said, it was my adjustment period through isolation, so I'm 65% in target, but I'm only 2% above 13, which means that when I am high and above target, it's only between 9 and 13. I'm not spiking loads, so it was just my stubborn morning highs that I was having during isolation that I think I've now kind of worked that one out. So you can see your time and target a bit more clearly, and you can see whether you're actually spiking really high a lot of the time or if you're just kind of scooting above your target range. Low glucose events, like I said before, and then you have your average glucose in bars. So the green bars are when you're in target and the yellow ones when you're above target, and it does it by time of day in 3-hour blocks. So you've got midnight to 3 a.m, 3 a.m to 6 a.m, blah blah blah. So like I said, my stubborn morning highs, I was going a bit too high, and then after dinner I'm also going a bit too high. But I think I've sorted out the morning ones now, so next is to tackle this yellow bar. So it really helps you see which times of day you need to focus on. And then the last thing you get extra in the app is an estimated HbA1c. It's not 100% accurate, just because last time I had my HbA1c I was actually 0.2 lower than what it's on here, which was a nice surprise, but it gives you a rough idea. 0.2 is not that big of a deal. It's pretty accurate. So yeah, so that's why it's so great. You get all of that information literally by just scanning your arm. And basically you can see the areas and times of day you need to improve, you can see patterns, you can see where you're heading throughout the day, and it is just fab. What I was going to say next was the difference between the Libre, which is a flash glucose monitoring device, and the Dexcom, which I think a lot of people have over in the US. Is the Dexcom is kind of the next step up, so it's a constant glucose monitor. So rather than scanning like you have to do with this, the Dexcom is constantly monitoring and sending that information at the same time to your phone, or you can even get it to your smartwatch. So you literally just have to look at your watch or look at your phone screen, and it will say your blood glucose there and then with the arrows and all the same. So basically it's just a quicker way of seeing where you're going, but the key thing with the Dexcom is that you can set alarms for when you're going low or going high, which can really help if you're, for example, someone who has a lot of nighttime lows. It will wake you up before you get really low, and this is why the Dexcom you can get on the NHS if you're having severe recurrent hypos, because it will alarm you before you get to that stage, and it is a lot safer. The same with if you're going high, it will alarm you before you get really high, so you can get in and act quickly before it becomes a big deal. So that's the difference. So with this, obviously, because it's not sending the data straight to your phone, there's a memory chip in here or something that holds the data for 8 hours. So if you don't scan for 8 hours, you lose the end bit of data. So for example, overnight, so you go to bed at 10 p.m. and you wake up at 8 a.m. When you scan, you won't get the data from 10 p.m. to midnight, because it only has the last 8 hours from midnight to 8 a.m. It's no big deal, but that's just one thing to note. You get 8 hours on here, so if you sleep longer than 8 hours, you'll lose a bit of data, but obviously, so the graph, it will have like a line, and then it will just like block out, and then the line will continue, so you can obviously see what's happened in that, so it doesn't really matter at all. So yeah, so I realised I didn't actually explain how it measures. So basically, if you look at my first video, I did at the end do a Libre changeover. So I put my new Libre on and explained basically it's like a stamp kind of thing that pushes this onto your arm, and there's a teeny tiny filament that's a hair width length and like a couple of hair width and a couple of millimeters long, and that's in there and that's doing the monitoring, and then this is just all adhesive on the other side of here to stick it to your arm. One important thing I wanted to speak about, if you're thinking of going on the Libre or you've just got a new Libre and when you start using it, it can be a shock, because I know when I first got it, I was like, I am never in target range. Well, that's what it felt like, obviously I was, but I was expecting my target range to be like 70 to 80% and it was like 50, and I was like, what the heck, I've had diabetes for 15 years and I'm only on target 50% of the time, all these numbers look awful, like I'm doing horribly, I'm going to get complications, I'm going to die, blah blah blah. I had this whole panic. I was like, this is awful. But that's the whole point of getting the Libre, is because you want to improve your blood sugar management. You're not going to improve if you don't get the information. You can only act on information that you have. And once you start using it and you notice patterns, the minute you notice a pattern and act on it, your time and target will shoot up, because that's one area of your diabetes that you've now got under control. Sure, things fluctuate from now and then. Like I was saying with isolation, I just got it to a point where I was like 70% of target, 70% of time in target or above, 75. And now I'm back to like mid 60s, because isolation's kind of throwing things a bit up in the air. But the point of having a Libre is to get your basic control better, and it will take time. I would say for me it took 6 months to really know how to use this data from the Libre and make all the changes that I needed. It turned out there were a lot of changes I needed to make, a lot of patterns that like I suddenly became aware of when using the Libre, and things that I suddenly learned that are so valuable to my diabetes management. Honestly, it has revolutionised the way I manage my diabetes, and I'm so grateful for it. But yeah, just please, in the beginning, don't be hard on yourself. Everyone's like this when you get a Libre to start with. You think you're like the worst diabetic on the planet, but it's just because you haven't had the information, you haven't had the tools. Once you have the tools, it will change everything for you, honestly. So with that bit of emotional advice out of the way, I thought I should now get into some actual advice for people that either have the Libre or are getting the Libre, and just some practical things. Firstly, like I said in my other video when I was doing my Libre change, when you put the thing on and you scan it for the first time, you then have to wait for 1 hour before you can use it, because it has a 1 hour warm-up time. I think it's something to do with when you apply it, it creates a mini trauma to the skin. Which means it's not very accurate, because, I don't know, sugar rush is there or something. Anyway, it's very inaccurate for the first hour, and it tends to read a bit higher. One thing I found personally from doing that trial where I was having to scan and prick my finger at the same time, is that it is not an hour that it's inaccurate for, it is nearer 8 to 12 hours. So I always, the day before my sensor is due to end, I put the next one on, don't scan it, just put it on, and then it will start warming up and all the trauma will subside. Then you wake up in the morning, this one's done, you rip it off, activate this one, and it is already 100% accurate. You still have to wait for the hour, because you literally can't use it for the first hour, just because of Abbott's guidelines. But then when it's ready to use, it is 100% ready to go and accurate. One other thing about accuracy, this is also a weird one, and also something that I picked up doing this trial when I was pricking at the same time, is you might find, like I do, after a shower, for the first half an hour or so, it is really inaccurate. Well, I say really, like 1 or 2 out, but it can be quite a big difference if you're like high or low. For the first half an hour, it's not so accurate. I think it's something to do with all, well, one of the clinicians has told me it could be to do with all the heat rushing to the surface of the skin and affecting the sugar levels. But, so yeah, for the first hour, for the first half an hour after a shower, be wary of what it says, because it could be higher than what you are, and it could be just not quite right. Another thing to note is it doesn't measure your blood sugar, it measures another fluid in your body, which I can't remember what it is. And so there is a slight delay. I think it's a 7-minute delay from blood sugar to this. So if you're, for example, treating a hypo, you eat, you wait 10 minutes and you scan, you're still probably going to be the same as where you were, because the sugar, even if it's kicked in your body, hasn't translated to this measurement yet, because it's 7 minutes behind. So just, if you're feeling really low, prick your finger again to see if you've gone up or not. Or if you're not too low and you think you can wait and you're just like sitting at home, wait a bit before you scan and act again. Don't treat something, scan and treat again. Wait, because there is a delay. The same as if you're high, don't keep injecting just because it's not gone down on your Libre yet. If you're really worried about going high, that you're going really high, do a finger prick instead. Obviously the insulin still does take time even if you're doing a finger prick, or just wait it out a bit longer because there is a delay. And also on the same kind of note, if you've scanned and it's not what you're expecting and you really don't think it's right, like for example if you feel low and you scan and it said you're not low, do a finger prick, because it can get slightly less accurate, especially towards the end if it's starting to peel away a bit, or if the filament's just kind of running out, they can get slightly less accurate. You know your body better than anyone else. If you think something's not right, don't just trust a number from this, prick your finger and double check. The same as if you scan and it says you're high but you actually feel completely fine and you really don't think you are. Don't just go ahead and inject, because you will probably make yourself low if you're not already high. Do a finger prick and just double check. That is one thing actually that I need to listen to a bit more myself, because I always forget to do that and then end up overcorrecting something, which is annoying. That's me. In terms of putting it on and where you put it, I find some places it falls off a lot quicker than other places. So for me, I always put it as close as I can onto a muscle. I personally like it on my triceps. I have seen some people put it on the inside of their arm. I've even seen someone put it on their thigh. But I always tense my arm before I put it on to see where the muscle is, then relax it and then put it on. Just because I find it holds a lot better on a muscle. I guess it's a bit more sturdy and it's not moving around as much. If it does start to fall off, there are things you can do. There are companies that sell patches for the Libre online that you can put it over and it can stick. Or you can put plasters like on the side, but they do officially, I'm pretty sure Abbott's saying not to cover the thing, although there are do know people that use patches that just go over the whole thing and they find it completely fine. But when I used one of them, my sensor just completely stopped working. My blood sugar was like 8 and I scanned it and it was like 29 and rising. I was like, I don't think so. My blood sugar says 9 or 8 or whatever, and then it just stopped working. It says cannot, it just said like sensor doesn't work. So just be wary. I would recommend probably not covering it unless you think you really need to put a patch over it. If mine's falling off, I just put a plaster either side or wherever it's peeling off from. But I haven't actually had to do that in quite a long time, since like 2019 at least. I haven't done it this year. So I think they are getting more sticky, so you shouldn't need that, but just in case. And my final tip, bit gross, bit weird, but oh well. Once you put it on, sometimes, this has only happened to me like 2 or 3 times, but sometimes they can bleed. And last time I put it on and it bled, and you don't feel it normally. And I put my clothes on, I put my favourite top on, and then I looked down at my arm and then my sleeve was just all covered in blood, which is really annoying. So once you put it on, leave your arm out, I would say, for a few minutes, because it can wait. This was when I actually filmed it. I finished filming the whole video and it didn't bleed. And then I turned the camera off, put my sleeve back down, and then it bled. So I'd say wait 10 minutes before you put clothes on, just in case it starts to bleed, but it doesn't last very long. You can just wipe it out with a tissue and it's fine. But yeah, just one little random tip: don't put clothes back over your arms straight after putting it on. So yeah, so that is all of my tips and tricks and info that I have on the Libre. If you have any questions about it that I haven't answered, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And I'll happily answer it in the comments. I hope this video has been useful if you're thinking about getting a CGM and now you feel a bit more convinced, and you're going to try and attack the system and get one on the NHS, or even if you just self-fund 1 or 2, or if you just learnt a thing or two that you didn't know if you already had a Libre. I think quite a lot of people might have had a little light bulb moment when I mentioned the shower. But yeah, I hope this has been useful, and please let me know below any other videos you would like to see from me in the future. Thanks, bye!